Oh, hey there, man! Why don't you just, have a seat right there in your imaginary chair? Say hello, guys! It's my good friend Nostalgia coming for a visit. Now, a lot of us, although I know not all of us, have been big readers since the beginning. Because of this, we've got lots of memories of books we were forced to read for silent reading, for grade, for AR reading, if you had that. That being said, Mrs. Boust, I have a confession to make. I never even read most of those books I got for AR points. I just made a lot of lucky guesses on the tests. Got a lot of points. I didn't deserve to have the highest number of points in the 5th grade. I didn't deserve that pizza party I got our class. Now that that's off my chest, we're going to discuss my top 10 favorite children's books. My favorite books growing up. Because nostalgia's fun, and I had and have excellent taste. You ready, Nostalgia? Here we go. Starting at number 10 is a book that seems to be everyone's favorite childhood book. Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak. Why is it at number 10? Don't you know this is everyone's favorite childhood book ever? You know, it made the list, so that's something. Back in the day, before I advanced a little further in my reading capabilities, I was enamored by illustrations. That was my number one priority. And I think the illustrations were this book's saving grace for me. Because little Cassidy saw Where the Wild Things Are as more of a creepy book than anything. There's a kind of hostile undertone that makes this book, I don't know, a little uncomfortable for little Cassidy. Like, Max is a brat, so he doesn't get dinner, so he gets angry, so he gets on a boat and sails to where the wild monsters dwell. That's the premise. And little Cassidy acknowledged that if Max took off his ridiculous outfit, the monsters would acknowledge that he's actually a human boy and, probably eat him. I mean, look at this. Look at the final page when he's heading home. We'll eat you up. We love you so? In the same sentence. And Max said no. Yeah, you better say no, Max, because the minute you take off your cat pajamas or whatever they are, they're gonna roast you on a spit. Number 9. When I was in the 5th grade, Frindle was the most empowering book to ever hit my elementary school's bookshelves. Not only is it a fantastic and smart little story about this kid who is just so set on calling a pin a Frindle that he goes through all this crap to make sure they're called Frindles, and then later on professionally trademarks the name, but it was the ultimate screw you to adults. See, everyone interprets books different ways, but little Cassidy saw this book as, just because you are bigger than me and older than me doesn't mean I can't call a pin a Frindle and get the entire school to participate in a mass rebellion to call pins Frindles. Frindle was a fun reminder that being a child does not make you dumb or incapable. And in the case of the teacher in the book, that adults aren't always out to get you, and some of them are just trying to follow the rules. Number 8. I loved the Blank from the Black Lagoon series. You might know it as the teacher from the Black Lagoon. As I said before, I loved illustrations, and these ones were so great. Basically, the thing was with this series was there's this kid who had always had a teacher or a secretary or a gym teacher that he had heard about or had never met, and in his mind he was just thinking of the worst case scenario, like, oh my gosh, my teacher must be a swamp monster, my principal must be a witch, I hear that she eats children, and he just goes on and just builds himself up and makes himself so nervous, and then when he meets the person, they end up being very nice and helpful, and he loves them. There was also a gym teacher from the Black Lagoon, the bus driver from the Black Lagoon, etc. All of them were kind of a gentle reminder that children shouldn't fear people they haven't met, and not to take too much stock in the rumors of your peers, because 10-year-olds are kinda stupid. Number 7. Who didn't love Sideways stories from Wayside School? Nobody. The answer is nobody, except for people without a soul. So I don't know how I made the list, but I loved Sideways stories. Wayside School was weird and funny and quirky, without using fart jokes or other immature devices to get to our little premature brains. As a kid, I loved the humor, but now that I'm older, I'm seeing what probably drew kids to it was how relatable it was. Even though there were so many ridiculous things happening, there were a lot of things that we as kids could relate to, like the kid who was punished all the time, kind of unfairly, the teachers that gave out punishments that students secretly enjoyed, and the shenanigans that the children got into. We loved that. Number 6. Now, I don't know how the heck this got approved for young children, but good job. You have fueled my nightmares from the time I had a Winnie the Pooh comforter until today. As a kid and even now, I love scary stories, but I don't think I knew what I was getting myself into when I read scary stories to tell in the dark. I read these stories over and over and over and over again for some reason, even though every single time they freaked me out. Self-torture, I don't know. Just look at the illustrations. Like what even are these? Children read these books. Children. What editor was like, children probably won't pee their pants due to this? And this book just got optioned for a movie. Great. I was running out of fuel for my nightmares, so, cool. Number 5. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. It was my favorite book when I was so small I couldn't read. I just freaking loved the pictures. I would just turn the pages and stare at each picture just intently for like 20 minutes, and then I would look at the next picture. Illustrations are just fantastic. But when I got older and could read it, I loved the story even more. It's such a ridiculous idea, told so matter-of-factly, and I think I read this book as a very, very small child more times than any other one I can think of. This is not to be confused with the movies, which are funny, but actually nothing like the book. In fact, if you've never read or, looked at the illustrations of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, the original, I don't know if there are new illustrations out there, I suggest that you head to your local Barnes & Noble and kind of sneak over to the kids section. It'll literally take you 10 seconds to read. It's just great, and I can't wait to give it to my kids someday. Number 4. The series of unfortunate events was the shiz when I was in elementary school. Everyone was reading it. That and Harry Potter. I'm not adding Harry Potter to the list, however, because Harry Potter is kind of a given. It was like you read all these happy books with happy endings as a young child, and then there was this dark little wake-up call. To this day, this book series is in my top 10 favorite book series. And with good reason, it's fantastic. It's odd and different with these absurd tangents from this absurd author about his absurd life, and then he has these other tangents with this absurd story about these weird orphans and their weird life. It's just peachy. And it's really depressing, but it's great. Number 3. Goosebumps was the cherry on top of the metaphorical and delicious ice cream sundae that was my reading life as a child. While I did enjoy deeper reads with, developing characters and actual themes, Goosebumps was brain candy, and I freaking loved it. I checked these books out so many times for silent reading, my teacher actually had to threaten to give me a citation to get me to stop reading Goosebumps. You can only do so many book reports about Goosebumps. This is where I discovered that if you take a smaller book and you put it in a bigger book and you kind of hold it close to your chest like this and pretend to read the bigger book, you can get away with reading Goosebumps for silent reading. Sorry again, Mrs. Faust. They were just spooky and outrageous and sometimes so stupid, and I just loved them. And they later turned into a TV series that were just as spooky and outrageous and stupid, and I loved that TV series too.
What are you doing here?
Number 2. Any book by Roald Dahl. If Goosebumps was the cherry, Roald Dahl was the chocolate sauce on top of the sundae. Although I loved spooky stories and mysteries and funny stuff, if I really had to sum up my reading taste as a child, I would do it through Roald Dahl novels. They were dark, quirky, and inspiring stories. Matilda, The Witches, Danny Champion of the World, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. They were wonderful, surprisingly deep stories. My favorite was probably The Big Friendly Giant, which, by the way, is also being turned into a movie. The telltale art was messy and colorful, and I ate it up. However, I'll admit, Roald Dahl can be very, very dark at times. Little Cassidy either liked or didn't acknowledge this, I don't really remember, but just a word of caution if you are looking to give these books to a small child. Like, I had friends whose parents wouldn't let them read Roald Dahl, like until they were older. Number 1.
Oh, that's what we're doing, we're singing.
Holes is to this day one of my top 10 favorite books of all time. Louis Sachar, who also wrote Sideways Stories, is known for his great storytelling, and I honestly think Holes is his best work ever. It explored the themes of racism, friendship, forbidden love, family, you name it. Holes tells 3 different stories that work together so beautifully, almost musically, and I loved this book so much that I chose it for my teacher to read aloud, not 1, not 2, but 3 years in a row, with 3 different teachers. And this amazing book turned into one of my favorite movies of all time. I'm pretty sure I've seen this movie at least once a week since it was released in 2003, and I quote it constantly. Once upon a time, there was a magical place where it never rained. The end. You thirsty, Stanley? D-I-G. What's that spell? I would've made it through if my pocket didn't start barking. Nah. What's that, Nostalgia? Well, sure, I'll ask him. Do you agree with my list? What's your list? Let's reminisce together. Let's have fun with this. These are the books that made me the reader I am today, and I want to know the books that made you you. Oh, and people, don't forget, there is nothing wrong with picking up any of these books later in life. I do it. I've done it. Multiple times. And if you're an audiobook kind of person, a lot of them are available on Audible right now. You remember Audible, Nostalgia? They are the #1 provider of audiobooks with thousands of titles to choose from nonfiction to fiction to double fiction, triple fiction, non-fiction, and children's books. Remember how me and Audible are buddies too? Hey, Audible. Yeah, well, just click the link below and you'll get a free audiobook as well as a 30-day trial. Play around with Audible a bit. And it's actually super easy. All you have to do is type in audible.com/castj. Again, that is audible.com/castj, like Cash J Tuck, minus the tuck. Okay, so comment below. Let's get serious. I want to talk about children's books. I'm so hot, Sam, but I feel so cold. Go, Zero!